Hi everyone, Dr. Vicky here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center. We're going to be looking at the astrology from the 10th of November to the 16th. That is Sunday to Saturday. And there's a lot of really interesting things happening this week, not the least of which is a full moon, which is conjunct Uranus. Before I get started, I just want to make a couple of announcements. First of all, welcome to my new subscribers. You will find that this is a wonderful community of like-minded people who are really seeking, searching, and figuring out how best to serve the divine plan, how to make the world a better place. Um, and to my tried and true who have been with me for years, you know how much I appreciate your support over all these many years. And these years have been caucus, as we say in Massachusetts, caucus. And we probably had not maybe the biggest corker um, moment, but certainly the biggest in a number of years. And yes, in fact, that was when the United States decided that they were going to put a convicted felon adjudicated rapist in charge with a psychological malignant narcissistic personality disorder in charge of the most powerful country on the planet. So we are kind of reeling a bit and wondering what the F. So that's where we're at. So we're going to look today to see um, what's coming up for this week. Now, I want to say that last week, or the beginning, actually, the very, very first day of the month, we had a new moon in the sign of Scorpio. And at that time, the rulers of Scorpio were about to make an exact opposition to each other. They did that 3 days later, 2 days later on the 3rd. Um, and that was in the last degrees of Cancer and Capricorn. Now, Mars has moved on into Leo, and Pluto is still in Capricorn, but will be leaving Capricorn next week. So we have a very sort of big shift coming up amongst many other enormous changes and shifts, and we can certainly feel it in the world, the instability, the energy. Of course, we're in a very active solar period because, why not that too? Uh, and still in the middle of, in fact, last week we had our second hit of our Chiron return here in the United States. We are still pretty much in our Pluto return, and we're facing a rather uncertain future. So let's dive right in, and I'm going to tell you what I see. I'm going to go over the charts, and I'm going to give you some impressions that I have as I was going over this today. So let me share my screen with you. Okay, so just give me a minute here so I can kind of do what I need to do here. Come on, slideshow. Ooh, doo, 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 doo. All right, we're not starting here. We're going to go back, so just ignore this for a moment. We'll get here, believe me. Okay, so we're looking at week 2, the 10th to the 16th, and things really start happening tomorrow on the 11th when we have the Sun making in conjunct to Jupiter. The interesting thing about the Sun and Jupiter, they're two largest things in our solar system. So when they interact, everything is bigger, everything is more exaggerated. And I'm not sure exaggeration is really what we need right now, but that's what we got. The Sun in Scorpio and Jupiter in Gemini, and Jupiter just recently changed direction and is now going retrograde. So it says here, one of the most profound lessons of this aspect is to recognize the tension between your aspirations and your reality. And I have to say, didn't we kind of learn that lesson last week? Um, we will just hold that for a moment. And then also on the 11th. And just to point out that the 11th is the 1111 portal, which I'll be doing a reading on tomorrow. I always try to do the portal readings on the day of the portal just to get the full energy, just for you guys, to come through the readings. Okay, that being said, after we have this in conjunct, we have the sun, excuse me, Venus ingress into Capricorn, very significant ingress for Venus. It was during when Venus had her retrograde cycle in Capricorn, was the year that Dodd was overturned. So so we don't forget that. We don't forget anything, quite frankly. And then on Tuesday, the 12th, we have Mercury making a last quarter square to Pluto. These are crisis and consciousness squares, uh, questioning authority, right? Depending on our own sense of our own will to be authorities in our own life, to turn away from the old ways of thinking, doing, in some cases being, realizing that perhaps society's criteria is no longer your criteria because you have your experiences and you want to be an authority in your own life. The caveat to that, of course, is that in order to truly be an authority in your own life, you have to take 100% responsibility for it. So it's easy to rebel, but it's not always easy to um, have a plan beyond that. Well, this last quarter square says to us, you better have a plan beyond that. Okay, so people may feel driven to challenge authority or control dynamics in their relationships. Those are two possible ways. And certainly, we've noticed that men have been trying to control the dynamics of their relationship to women. We could bring up Dodd again. Not all men, no men that I know, and perhaps no men that I care to know. However, certainly people in positions of power, like, oh, I don't know, presidents and senators and House members and judges, Supreme Court justices. Oh, and their wives, of course. Yes, and Opus Dei and Project 2025. And yeah, bleh, bleh, bleh. I ain't going to talk about it. All right. On Thursday, the 14th, Venus makes an inconjunct to Mars. This says mental adjustments needed as you may find yourself frequently caught in the web of others' expectations and obligations. Wow, that sounds like a woman's life, doesn't it? Your innate desire to be appreciated and valued can drive you to prioritize their needs over your own. Well, we do need to watch that, right, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, on the 15th of September, Saturn stations direct. Saturn stations direct. And a little while after that, we have the full moon at 25 degrees of Taurus, Sabian symbol, a well-kept public park. Speaking of working collectively, it says belonging to a tribe or community involves us working together towards shared goals that we all enjoy. Participation in community responsibilities. This full moon is exactly conjunct Uranus. This full moon in Taurus is square the United States moon of the Sibley chart, which means that this full moon is square, this full moon conjunct Uranus is square the Sibley chart moon, which happens to be in Aquarius ruled by Uranus. This is a very revolutionary time. I would say only about half the people, maybe less, are excited about the election results. And I'm going to put results in air quotes. That should be sufficient to know where I stand on that. Okay. And then Saturday, Venus. We're very Venus active this month, this week. Venus squares the nodes of the moon. Whenever a planet squares the nodes of the moon, it is difficult to let go of the past and move into the future. There is a resolution to that. It's called a resolution node. In the case of Venus square the nodes this time, the resolution node is the south node, which says go back to your past and renegotiate relationships. And that could also be renegotiating your relationship to yourself. right? It could also be uh, renegotiating relationships, um, what you're willing, like to what I want to say extreme are you willing to go in 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 the um in the goal of evolving and moving forward. And then on the same day, we have Sun oppose Uranus, which is always fun. Sudden illuminations, change, breaking free. Okay. So when we look at just the tree of life here in the middle, we notice we're in an 8-year vibration. It's very, very intense right now. This is the strength card in the tarot that is associated with Leo. So people with Leo in their chart are getting activated big time this month. And of course, Mars is in Leo in part of this month. I believe right now, actually, Mars is in Leo this week. We're in the 11-2 vibration of November. That is the path of cosmic justice, connecting Mars with the Sun. And this week we have the Sun in Scorpio, and not moving into Sag until next month. We have the combination of 11, which is the month vibration, and 8, which is the year vibration. We get a 19-1. That's the Sun card. That is revelation, revelation. And then we have a full moon this week. And I think that's what I want to just point out with that. So let's get into the astrology because there is a lot to cover and I don't want to keep you for too long. So we have Venus ingress into Capricorn. 11/11/2024 vibrates to a 30/3 in the tarot. It is the Four of Wands, often associated with the Democratic Party for many of the readers, but that's just sort of something that us readers sort of have come up with or seems to be a common thread. You can program your cards, and so when more than when there's groups of people doing things, when you program your cards, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're telling the cards, you're not directing the cards, but you're putting in the idea that that card represents that. And so we have that. And of course, it is about celebration. It is about coming together and celebrating. Now, Venus at 1 degree of Capricorn. The first degree of Capricorn is an Indian chief demanding recognition. Remember, Venus is the planet associated with women. So we could say Venus, the woman, is demanding the woman Indian chief, or the woman chief, or the chief who's a woman, or the Indian who's a woman, demanding recognition, claiming power, claiming power. It says here, when the community's security is threatened, then those who can will claim a position of authority and take command, observing the effects of unrestrained personal power. Unrestrained personal power. The ruler of Capricorn, I always look whenever a planet moves into a new sign, I do like to see what the ruler of that sign may be doing and where it's sitting. And the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn in Pisces, 13 degrees of Pisces, a sword in a museum, a single pointed certainty of purpose. Now, I also want to mention that we have the Sun in conjunct Jupiter on this day. And again, I will repeat this, one of the most profound lessons of this aspect is to recognize the tension between your aspirations and your reality. I know as a woman, I was inspired and aspired to bring Kamala Harris over the finish line. And the interesting thing about that was that we actually, like many of the readers, kind of read the same thing, even those that I don't know, just there's always an emotion involved. Well, for me there's always an emotion involved, but even the ones who weren't really we'll call them emotional readers, were seeing the same thing. So, was it a thought form that we were all creating? Possibly, but it doesn't mean that it can't still manifest itself. I think I want to say about that. But let's take a look at this chart. Here we have Venus up here in first degree of Capricorn, just going into Capricorn actually. And then we have the ruler of Capricorn, Saturn here. It is retrograde, but by the end of the week, it's going direct. So it's not really moving a whole lot between when Venus moves into the sign of Capricorn, which is ruled by Mars, and when, excuse me, ruled by Saturn, when um, Saturn, I have to go back, I'm sorry. Saturn, when I try to turn the page on these, it doesn't happen. Now it's like, oh, let's turn, like before she's ready. Okay, because there's a couple of other really interesting things in this chart. We still have the opposition between Pluto and Mars. This is a long opposition because in December, it's going to go out of orb, I believe, not too far out of orb before, and maybe not even. No, actually, I think it stays in orb for quite a while. So there's a lot of energy and pressure in this opposition between Mars and Pluto. Mars and Pluto have a special relationship because Mars is the way we get our unconscious desires. Pluto, we express them consciously by going after what we want. Okay, so this is a powerful time, and we also have we still have connections of this Pluto to Uranus and to Neptune. So all the transpersonal planets are really active, and the transpersonal planets open us up. They put a crack in the cosmic egg and allow the light to come in. And so there's a lot of light. We're seeing things, we're feeling things, we're in many cases overwhelmed. This is a very extreme energetic period, and you must get care. You must take care of yourself. Get all the sleep you need, drink all the water you need to drink, eat well, get a little exercise, go outside, and shut the television off if there are things that are upsetting you. Because it's not about what they say, but it has more to you wanting to put your energy into what you want to create. We are co-creative with spirit. And we know what's at stake. We know what's at stake. I want to point out that in this chart, we also have a yod to the sun from Jupiter and Chiron. Jupiter and Chiron are in a sextile to each other. It is a waxing sextile, so it's opening the lines of communication in what has to change. What do we need to, sun in Scorpio, what do we need to transform? Transform our purpose, our sense of self? Do we realize that we are co-creative with spirit and that we have power that is beyond our greatest imaginings? The thing is, with the power beyond your greatest imaginings is you have to be in your higher centers. You have to be in love. You have to be in your heart, and yet with your feet firmly planted on the ground, because as we see with the sun in conjunct, we have our aspirations and we have our reality. So we have to know both what's going on in real time and then what we want to see in the greater scheme, in our vision, right? In our third eye vision. Okay. On the 12th, Tuesday, Mercury makes a last quarter square to Saturn. Mercury is at 13 degrees of Sagittarius now. A widow's past comes to light, dealing with unresolved issues. The past can never be forgotten until we have dealt with what we need to deal with fully and finally. Notwithstanding the uplifting joy that a new dawn is coming, the past has still to be dealt with. Karma cannot be sidestepped. We are in a karmic debt number vibration. November 2024, 19-1 is a karmic debt number. The United States of America went into this number on the 4th of July. We moved into a 19-1 year. It is revelation illumination, and moving in a new direction. And I'll tell you right now, Donald Trump is not a new direction. Donald Trump is an old direction. All right, this day, this day on the square, the Five of Wands. I especially like this Five of Wands. This is from the, what is it called? The, shit. Oh, sorry. This spellcast, modern spellcasters deck. We have these guys just like this reminds me of the bros, like these guys who were like, oh, we just gonna take the whole system down, and they're flipping around, and they don't realize that as they're doing that, there's a hornet's nest, and they're gonna hit that, and then the hornets are gonna come and wipe them out. And there's this guy here, just sort of like just standing there, not part of the group, just kind of like stand there. Maybe he's resting, maybe he did do something, but he has his blindfold up, so he knows what's going on, and he's watching the others really flirt with quite a bit of danger and quite a bit of upcoming pain if they hit that hornet's nest. And I might say that the hornet's nest could be the women. Okay, we could go with that. All right, so dealing with unresolved issues. And then we're in a crisis and belief square with Saturn at 13 degrees of Pisces. We're going to see this over and over again, this 13 degrees, because Saturn doesn't move this week, excuse me, because it's turning retrograde, building power, a sword in a museum, developing sharpness of intent. There is no greater tool or weapon to the spiritual aspirant than the power of the will. You and I are spiritual aspirants. What do we want to see? Okay. Excuse me. This is actually the first of 3 exact last quarter squares. Why? Because Mercury is going to go retrograde. Mercury goes retrograde on the 25th of November. And so Mercury makes a square to Saturn 3 times. So let's take a look at the first one here, the one that we're looking at in November. Let's see, where's Saturn? Saturn. Here's Saturn. And here is Mercury in the first house. Now, Mercury is in Sag. Mercury in Sag is somebody who speaks the truth or wants to speak the truth or needs to speak the truth or speaks bluntly. And then square Pluto. Now, you can see that, Saturn in Pisces. And you can see that it is the last quarter because Mercury started here with its conjunction to Saturn and then has made its way 3/4 of the way. And so this last quarter here, we have Mercury moving forward, then it's going to move backwards, make another square to Saturn, then it's going to move forward again. And that actually happens. Okay, so this began on the Mercury-Saturn conjunction on the 28th of February. It was 10 degrees of Pisces, and a pilot seeing through ground obscuring clouds, attaining the highest level of responsibility that you can manage. We were sort of, I don't want to say warned, but not warned, but given orders back in February, okay, that we were going to have to be our best, that we were going to have to shine our light, that we were going to have to do the work. We are the people we've been waiting for, and it's time for us to do it. Now, here we have the other 2 last quarter squares. One of them occurs December, what is this? December 6th. So December 6th, we have Mercury goes retrograde on the 25th of November. By December 6th, it has made another square to Saturn. Here's Saturn. Here's Mercury. Notice that the Sun is conjunct Mercury in this square, and it's opposing Jupiter. So we have a T square here with Saturn, Jupiter, the Sun, and Mercury. Saturn and Jupiter are what we call social planets, and they will be making a first quarter crisis in action square. I think it is in December. I think it's definitely in December because we're looking at a December chart. I just want to point out that we have the square this month, and then these are the 2 other squares. I want to point out the power behind these squares because they're especially powerful This one, because we have Jupiter here, which expands everything. We have the sun. Remember I said Jupiter, sun come together. There's expansion. And then this is also the day, the very day we have the square is the day that Mars stations retrograde at about 7 degrees of Leo 610. And what's interesting about that is that, well, this is a chart for the US, and this is 1003 is right around Trump's Pluto. But just as an aside, um, but this is actually the north node of the United States in the Sibley chart is around 7 degrees of Leo. So there's that. So this is fated, as we know, this is a fateful time. Now, if we look over here, this is the third one. This is the third last quarter square occurs on December 27th. So we have one happening in November and two happening in December. That's a 4711 vibration. We can see these are the vibrations of the days that it happens. It's at 15 of Sag Pisces with a close Moon Uranus opposition. So here is, here we go. We have Mercury here squaring Saturn, right? Saturn is squaring Jupiter. Jupiter is opposing this Mercury, okay? The exact aspect is this. Mercury, Saturn, but you can't not look at this. And then look at this, right? We have Uranus and the moon in an opposition. Now, the moon moves very quickly, but it's interesting that we have this opposition and square. There's Venus again. Venus, but this is in December. So I just want to show you how there is all kinds of shifting and power and changing events, perhaps, but certainly a lot of it's going to feel, I think, very chaotic. So we have to make sure that we focus on what we want to bring in this energy. One of the things that the energy of chaos does is it creates energy, and you can either get caught up in the chaos and have it take you down, or you can step back from the chaos and allow the energy of that chaos to help to you can focus energy. You can focus energy. And whose energy you're focusing? You're focusing your energy. You're focusing your higher self, your higher mind, your higher vibrational self to bring in what you want to bring in. And I know that even the people who voted for Trump, except maybe for a couple of them, don't want to bring in what he could bring in. Now, that's what I'm going to say about that. I know people feel like he is a light bringer. He might very well be a light bringer, but it doesn't mean that he's going to be in charge. Okay? It doesn't mean that he's going to be in charge. Okay. So, on Thursday, we have Venus making in conjunct to Mars. Inconjuncts are always about making adjustments, and this is a mental adjustment. This is part of the synodic cycle that began in February at 7 degrees of Aquarius. When these two planets, Venus and Mars, came together, a child born out of an egg, freedom from old ways and standards. So that was the Venus Mars conjunction. Now, Venus and Mars has a 2-year synodic cycle. So we're just about halfway through this cycle, but we do have a Mars retrograde. We do have a Venus retrograde. So the second half of this cycle is a little bit longer than the time it takes to go from initial conjunction to opposition is less than the time it's going to take from opposition to coming around to make that next conjunction. So it's the outer expression of this cycle there's going to be a lot of back and forth, give and take, and just a lot of uh, a lot of redoing, renegotiating, and Venus, a lot of re's, and Venus and Mars deals with our how we relate and the balance between our masculine and feminine. This day we have a 7 of Wands. It's a 7 of Wands day, which usually means courage and standing up, having the higher ground. So we have Venus at 4 degrees of Capricorn. Major simultaneous collective changes of life uprooting as a family or tribe demands a very high degree of group consciousness and belief in shared values. Group responsiveness to a collective emergency. This is Venus, right? The feminine, the women. It's an emergency, ladies. In conjunct Mars, the men. Okay. Um, at 4 degrees of Leo, proving oneself, demonstrating achievements and abilities has spiritual merit despite the high risk of becoming um, prideful. Finding a way to make relevant our own small achievements, our own small achievements. So mental adjustment. So this is just the aspect of the day description. Mental adjustment are needed as you may find yourself frequently caught in the web of others' expectations and obligations. Your innate desire to be appreciated and valued can drive you to prioritize their needs over your own. We need to start taking care of ourselves, ladies. And of course, for those men watching this, you know that I'm talking not just about ladies, I'm talking about our feminine side. I'm talking about our feelings and the sacredness of our bodies and the fact that if they're our bodies, we have the right to, that nobody can tell us what to do with them. We are the arbiters of our own body autonomy, whether you're male or female, gay, straight, or somewhere on whatever line that is that everybody talks about that I still don't quite understand. But it doesn't mean that, you do you. As we say, you do you, boo. I know that's from Susan Lynn. Thank you for that. I like that, Susan. Okay. Saturn stationing direct. Saturn stationing direct. This is the same day as the full moon. So Saturn stations, it's been retrograde. When Saturn is retrograde, it's a time of introspection. It's a time when the rules don't quite have the same power because we're sort of evaluating if the rules even work, if they're worth keeping, do we need to change them? And then when Saturn goes direct, the rules come into play. Saturn is the Lord of karma after all. And we do remember, right? What was that on the first one here? Hold on a second. I'm going to go backwards. No, okay, sorry. I'm going to go backwards here. It's something that was said here. The past can never be forgotten until we have dealt with it. What we need to deal with fully and finally. Fully and finally. Jack Smith is doing whatever he has to do because if Trump actually gets in, he's going to fire him. But we will see. We will see. What was that? Karma cannot be sidestepped? Hello? All right, that's good news. That applies to us too, so don't get too gleeful. Saturn stations at 13 of Pisces, a sword in a museum. I will read this symbol again. There is no greater tool or weapon for the spiritual aspirant than the power of the will. It sharpens the mind and impassions the thrust of projection forward. So will is often symbolized by a sword. Those whose path have shown remarkable determination to overcome obstacles, develop an appropriate reputation, and stand as an example of courage for others to emulate. I must say this, when I read this symbol, I thought, and I know what you're thinking, and I don't want you to think that, well, you can think whatever you want to think. My intention about saying what I'm going to say is it is an example of somebody who just doesn't take no for an answer, right? And that would be Donald Trump. And if we can learn anything from this guy, is not to take no for an answer, not to break the law, right? Not to break the law unless the law is unjust, right? Like the what do you call, like the laws, these abortion laws in these red states, unjust. Then we break the laws, right? Okay. Um, Development, reputation. Okay, others. All right, and here we have Saturn. There's Saturn. And this is the Eight of Wands is the vibration of the day. The Eight of Wands is about information coming in fast and furious. Fast and furious. And of course, on the same day, we can see the opposition getting closer, right? With the sun and the moon. We just go to the next slide and we have the full moon. The full moon at on 11/15/2025, that's the 34/7 vibration. The sun is at 24 of Scorpio. Crowds coming down a mountain, grounding spiritual experiences into life. How many spiritual experiences have we had? How do we ground them into our everyday life? We cannot sustain peak experiences. We must find a way to bring their teachings into normal, everyday life. Like, what's his name coming off Mount Sinai with the tablets, right? Practical application of spiritual principles. In opposition to the moon at 24 degrees of Taurus, a mounted Indian with scalps, channeled aggression. Says during early stages of development, it remains crucial to establish identity of self and tribe by fighting for it if needed. If needed. Channeling aggression. Channeling aggression. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we overcome. So let's look at the chart. Here's the chart. Here's the opposition. So we can see Uranus here. This is a chart for the US. So we have the moon right up front, first house, with Uranus right up front, first house, opposing the sun in Scorpio. Scorpio is one of the signs associated with relating, and Libra is the other one. And let's see what we have here. We have a trine to Neptune. We have the opposition to Uranus. And I would say it's wide, but we do have a sextile to Pluto. It's a little wide for that, but still it's there. The full moon is conjunct Uranus at 26 degrees of Taurus. A Spaniard serenading his senorita, acting appropriately. That's where Uranus is, interestingly enough. In mundane astrology, the moon is symbolic of the people. It is also an archetype of women. Women. And I do want to point out, it's not here, but I will tell you that right about here is the planet Eris. She's at about, I think, 26 degrees of Aries. And so she is squaring Pluto still. She's been doing that for a while, or Pluto's been squaring her for a while. Eris is the pissed off feminine. So there you go. All right. And this lunar axis is also being activated by Neptune and Pluto, indicating larger transformational processes at work. This is the card, the eight, again, the eight of wands. And notice it's Mercury in Sag. And where's Mercury? In Sag. Look at that. Opposite Jupiter. Look at that. Square Saturn. Look at that. A T square, right? As part of this. Again, having our voice heard. Building the foundations for a new way of relating, a more Aquarian way. Remember that Jupiter and Saturn, they're in the first quarter square of a synodic cycle that began on the winter here in the northern hemisphere anyway, solstice, summer solstice in the southern hemisphere in 2020. December 21st of 2020. And now we're in the first quarter crisis in action square. This is about building foundations. And I still don't think that the direction that Trump speaks of is the direction of the future. It's not fascism. I don't think. Okay. Let's see here. On Saturday, the 15th, Venus at 6 degrees of Capricorn, a dark archway with 10 logs at the bottom. That's the Sabian symbol. Completion. It is both wise and necessary to finish what we have started if we want to progress without being called back later. Venus square the nodes, squaring the nodes of the moon. Venus at 6 degrees of Capricorn, learning the relationship between beginnings and endings. The nodes of the moon are square. When the nodes of the moon are square, whatever planet is squaring those means that it has not completely moved through the energy of the node. So Venus isn't completely integrated into the south node in Libra or the north node in Aries. There is something called, so the issues are love, self-worth, abundance are all in focus. The resolution node is the south node in Libra. Interestingly enough, a Venus ruled node. We must go back to the past and renegotiate your relationships with others. Understanding how your need to keep the peace, perhaps, has affected your sense of self-worth. Either my husband's outside or there's some sort of animal out there. I can't tell. It could have been a deer. Oh well. Oh dear. So the south node is the resolution node. What does the south node say here? What's the Sabian symbol? Can we get some information from the Sabian symbol? A man watches his ideals taking concrete form before his inner vision. To the normal person, life is to be observed and accommodated or suffered. Yet an awakened person has a clear sense that it is we ourselves who create our outer circumstances in life, creating our own reality, even to the last detail. It is the mind that creates. A strong, subtle, and clear mind can both interpret the signals of the soul and resist the distractions of the body, holding focus upon the visualization of that course which faith and optimism suggest. 35.8, having healthy boundaries. This is saying no when you mean no. And people believing it. You cannot grab me by my lady parts. No. You cannot take my rights away from me. No. No. I will not stand for it. We are strong. We are powerful beyond our belief. We cannot just stand by and let this hoodlum make our life a living hell. Enough of that. Okay. One more thing, I think. Yes. The Sun-Uranus opposition. Still the same day. We're still with the same vibration. This is the Thoth card. This is the Nine of Wands as well in the Thoth deck. The Sun in Sag here. We're seeing. All right. So the Sun opposite Uranus. We're at the halfway point of the Sun-Uranus synod that began at the Sun-Uranus conjunction on the 13th of May 2024 at 24 degrees of Taurus, a mounted Indian with scalp blocks, channeled aggression. So that was the initial thing, is to get on your horse and do some scalping, right? Just take no prisoners, I guess, and just take their heads, take their scalps, off with their scalp. Now we have the Sun at 26 degrees of Scorpio, so we're at the halfway point. Here's the Sun, and here's here's the Sun, and here's Uranus. Remember, all of this is happening. Our goal is right here. Off with your head. Old powers that be tumbling, changes of power, right? And we will see what that's going to mean. It's not just something that's happening here in the States. It's happening all over the world, and we will see how that's going to manifest itself, how that's going to work out, right? Okay, so let's see. The sun at 26 is Scorpio. Indians making camp. Well, they got off their horses and they're not scalping anymore. And it's adaptability. We must learn how to respond to the changing environmental conditions in which we live. We could also point to climate change for that. Trusting that we can find whatever we need wherever we go. In opposition to Uranus at 26 degrees of Taurus, a Spaniard serenading his senorita, acting appropriately. Again, let's get a little deeper into that. Having established our place in the community, partly by doing what others do, we can then further our individual expression of self. Everybody in this community and in the communities of the other readers, which I think we have similar communities. I know many of you are in the community of other readers as well, but we are together now. The first time Trump won the presidency, we weren't expecting it. We didn't know each other, and now we know each other. Now we are connected. And it's as if we're connected into a power grid, and that power is the power of love, and that can change everything. We have to believe that we have access to the power, but we also have to understand that there's realities and there's densities that we're going to have to deal with. So if things don't happen quickly enough, we can't get dissuaded. It may take a month, it may take a year, it may take 4 years, it may take 10 years. Not that Trump's going to be with us for 10 years. I'm lucky if he makes a year. But we are now connected, and we are creating the web. We are creating the Christ consciousness web, the golden web around the earth. As people of the light pop up. Who do we have to thank for that? Probably Trump. Probably Trump. And so let's get together and make this world a better place. It's not about who wins and who loses. It's what we can do together to navigate this very transformational time. I truly believe that. All right, guys. So that's what I see for the week. One more announcement. I should have made this at the beginning, but I always forget. If you are trying to get a reading with me, you can go to my website, the seedsoftransformation.com. I'll put it below in the descriptor. It's always there anyway. You can go to any of these. It's down there. If you want a reading with me, you need to purchase one. You will be given an option as to what dates are available. If there are no dates available, you can always reach out to me, but I do try to check and make sure that there's at least a couple of dates available. I am scheduling into March now, so it won't be quick, but it'll definitely be worth the wait if you want to have a reading. If you have filled out a questionnaire, and I have a new client questionnaire, and you have not purchased a reading, I cannot get in touch with you because there's no way for me to get your email if you don't purchase a reading. It's not connected in that way on my website. So don't think you filled something out, I'm ignoring you. I don't know how to reach you. So if that happens to be you, you can either purchase a reading or you can reach out to me. My email is down below as well. So those are the couple things I want to say. I want you guys to take really good care of yourself. I want you to give yourself the grace that you're so willing to give others. We have, I don't know if it's a long road, but it's an intense road ahead of us. And we need to have each other's backs, and we need to have our own back. So take care of yourself. I'll see you again next week. We'll see what happens in the interim. I love you guys. Namaste.